Hey there.
Hi.
Welcome to another edition of Cambridge Inside Out. My name is Robert Winters.
And I'm Judy Nathans.
And tonight, amongst other things,
Yes.
we're going to spend a little time talking about the hardcore aspects of the ballot data that came from the recent municipal election.
Finally got a hold of it. Did your magic.
Yeah, we had I had to sort of wait through a marathon session on Friday as they did the final official count. But ultimately, I was able to wrangle the data and carry on from there. So that worked out just fine. All right. So let's see.
I want to tell you that he can switch for you to the computer,
Oh, okay.
so he'll listen to you and you can.
I think we.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. We're good, I think.
All right.
All right. Actually, a couple of quick things to mention right here is I think we announced a couple of events this past week. I just want to say there was the Veterans Day Memorial
Right.
at the Cambridge Cemetery. I
Right.
actually went up
Oh,
there,
good.
and it was wonderful.
Oh, good.
Absolutely wonderful.
Glad that you represented.
Yeah, and then also I mentioned that the Lynch family skate park.
Oh, I heard about that on the news. Yeah.
was,
Did you go to that too?
I sure did.
Did you skate there?
I didn't skate there, but what I did is I brought my 50-year-old skateboard, a vintage.
Oh, right. You had mentioned that.
My
Wow.
vintage, real wooden, old, original skateboard from the
Oh, my
1960s, and I carried it around. I wasn't going to ride it because
Yeah.
anybody who tries to ride it falls right off.
Right.
But it was kind of fun having these skaters come up to me. They just see me with it, and they went,
Oh.
"Whoa!"
Did they ask to ride it, or
they
you
said-
wouldn't let them? You just.
I would have let them if they
Yeah.
had wanted to, yeah.
Yeah.
But they said, "That's rad, man."
Right.
So I enjoyed that quite a bit.
That's nice.
Right.
Good.
So anyway, primary thing we're going to cover on today was, I should say one other thing at that skate park.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
I sort of watched it as it was being built.
Yeah.
But when you're actually there, and when everybody just flooded onto it, and they have some of these little pits where they
Yeah.
do their skates on
Right.
either
Yeah.
skateboards or bikes,
Yeah.
and these things, there's like different levels of,
Right.
of depth to them.
Yeah.
And some of the deeper ones, and I was walking up there, I was scared.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'd fallen, just tripped, I would have fallen, broken my neck,
Gosh.
guaranteed. And meanwhile, there were people just zipping by and just flying through the air right
Oh
in
my
front of
God.
you.
It's like that Olympic event, only not on snow.
Exactly.
Like the
No,
snow.
this is really a
That's
world-class
scary, though.
park,
Ooh.
and it's, I'm so used to this notion where everybody's always concerned about liability issues.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Boy, this
that
was
they-
like cast into the wind.
That's interesting. Yeah.
It was,
wow,
it was
you-
great, actually, and all the kids, and it wasn't just
Yeah.
kids, they were
Were there
loving
any
it.
officials there?
I don't know. I mean, there was some like well-known skateboard champs and whatever
yeah,
who were
right.
there.
I'd heard of that.
A lot of state, city officials. We had the mayor. I have a nice
That's
photo
what I mean.
of
Those
Marty
kind of
Walsh
people.
from Boston and David Marr, the two mayors, sort of like looking at each other like this.
Oh,
you
that's
know?
funny.
So I'll
Yeah.
have to do something with that photo at some point. Anyway, it was great fun.
Yeah.
Had a wonderful time. It was windy as can be, though, but
Yeah.
still, it was a great event. So let's see. Let's say a few things about the election. All right. One of the things we made quite clear, both on election night and also at the unofficial results, I guess the following day, was that there would be probably very few in the way of additional ballots to be counted, and that it wouldn't really change the results. And in fact, that's how
what
it worked
happened.
out. Yeah, in the end, there were really only a total of 8 ballots that were either what they call provisional ballots. Ballots typically, there were some examples of people who it was, late in the day, somebody who was pretty old and tough getting around, and they showed up at the wrong precinct, so they let them vote a ballot there, and they stuck it in an envelope, and then they counted it with their regular precinct.
But there weren't many of them.
Very few. I think there were about 3 of those, and then there were maybe 5. I'm guessing a little bit. I wrote them down, but
Yeah.
of the so-called overseas absentee ballots,
Right.
most of which were coming from Canada.
Huh.
So I always had this notion that it's like soldiers in Afghanistan or something, but it's typically just somebody who happened to be in Canada, but they're still a U.S. citizen and a Cambridge resident. So anyway, they 8 more ballots.
Didn't change the vote.
No,
So
I
there's
think
nothing that close this
David
year.
Marr
Yeah.
picked up a couple more number ones, and a few scattered around here and there. So there were 8 for city council, 8 for school committee,
Oh.
and so that did that. They rolled it and ran the computer one more time, got the final results, and no change. The only little tiny change was in the order of election on one of the city council in the very last round of the election.
order that they're elected to.
Yeah, just the order of election. I mean, I think originally Leland Chung must have been elected, and then Craig Kelly probably a ballot or two later.
Mhm.
Well, it worked out the
That
other way
reversed.
this time.
Oh.
So this time it was Craig Kelly was elected, and followed by, so I guess sixth or something, and then followed by Leland
Huh.
Chung seventh, and then Mark and
Interesting.
Dennis Carlone. So no real change
Yeah.
actually. But it did drag on with something. Of course, I was there
Yeah.
because I'm like data guy,
Right.
just sort of eagerly awaiting this ballot data, and I had to wait. Eventually got it, and immediately went home and just went nuts with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you do.
Yeah,
We're
and
gonna have the results of all that. So
right, we
go
could
into
definitely
the
say a
next
few
segment,
things.
right? So
Yeah.
what should we start with?
Um,
What do you think is most
I think
interesting?
maybe one thing perhaps is we can maybe just touch on. I made some predictions about what I thought we were going to see a much higher voter turnout in Ward 9
Right.
and much lower in the kind of Area 4 precincts. Well, I was a little off on that.
Really?
Yeah. Now, one thing you
Can
need
you define again what that covers? Like Ward 9 is.
actually,
Yeah, let's go look
let's see if we can do that. Let me see if
Yeah,
I can magically
okay.
make.
Well,
I'm trying to make the computer come on here.
there we go. Okay, and now.
All right.
And
Now,
now.
if you just scroll down a little bit,
Okay.
you'll
to
see. No, just
map.
scroll down a little bit. You can go all the way down, just down. Right. So I just put in the map of. all
Oh,
the
right
city
there.
wards
I'm
and
sorry.
precincts.
Okay.
Right. So.
Oh, okay.
So I was predicting that out in Ward 9, which you'll see in green here.
That's this one.
Yeah, it's a vicinity around Fresh Pond.
Okay.
Right, because Jan Devereaux is running out of Ward
Yes.
9 and close to, put together this thing called the Fresh Pond Residence
Right.
Alliance.
Yeah.
So that's around there. I figured, so she
Mhm.
was going to do very well. I thought there would be increased voter turnout. I thought that would take votes away from other candidates, maybe David Marr and others. So I was part right and part wrong. I'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Also figured in places like Ward 2, Precinct 1, which is a light green, kind of.
That's MIT and.
well, MIT is 2,
Oh.
3.
Okay.
But,
Oh, 2-1. That's like.
yeah. So deep into Area 4 is Area 4. We're now supposed to call it the Port.
Oh, right.
Is
Yes.
2-1, 3-2, 3-3, pretty much right in there. So I was expecting those precincts to sort of
Be low.
see lower voter turnout. Well, it wasn't quite that way. So let's see. So maybe we'll go.
So now we scroll up
Yeah, well, if we
and
can
go
just scroll up
to
here and we just
which.
let's just do the we'll cut right to the City Council #1 vote distribution
By
for
ward
and
precinct. Okay.
Right now, hopefully this stuff will be pretty visible. We'll do
Yeah.
what we
Automatic
can
zoom. Let me see if I can go in a little more.
to bring it up a little bit here.
That's a little. Yeah. About.
Yeah,
That's about as high as I
not
can
the
get.
easiest thing to read, but the thing is that one of the things that you see, if this is indeed visible, is that there were and
Try
actually,
again. And let me just scroll down. You don't need to see the title there. What about if I do this? That's better.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
I mean, something that we could perhaps show in a little bit, but I'll just sort of mention it right now,
Yeah.
is that in fact in places like, oops, I'm actually trying to find my, oh, here we go. In the places that I thought were going to really be big changes, what I found was in Ward 9, there was only an additional 80 people voted compared to 2 years ago.
Huh.
So
Okay.
in fact, there was a little bit of extra turnout, but not very much. Very
Okay.
conveniently, the total voter turnout was almost identical to 2 years ago.
Right.
So it's very easy to do some comparisons. So there was a slight increase in Ward 9.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bigger increase in Ward 11.
Ward 11. That's
Right.
that. Oh, big
Yeah.
increase from the last 2 years ago.
Yeah, so that jumped up by 124 additional voters down there.
Mm-hmm.
Ward 1 of all places, I still don't understand why, but Ward 1, which is deep in East Cambridge, jumped by 153 ballots, additional voters in the turnout. I'm going to guess, just a little bit of speculation here, that that's a lot of the new housing that's been built down there.
Maybe.
And that people are actually starting to register. And, they don't always register right away, but, eventually they do, and then they start showing up. So The biggest increases, just in terms of raw total, were in wards 1 and 11. In fact, not Ward 9, as I had predicted.
Okay,
What you do see happening in Ward 9, actually, let me just say one thing right away. If you sort of, let's focus here on where Leland Chung's total ballots are.
so Leland Chung would
yeah,
be
so
over
third column
here,
candidates.
third column, okay,
All right,
so,
now he actually lost, I mean, maybe I'll show you a graphic about this a little bit later.
he has a lot of votes in Ward 10.
Yeah, but the thing is that he actually lost votes everywhere throughout the city. Compared to 2 years earlier, Leland dropped over 1,200 ballots. So he actually
Goodness.
got less than half of what he did.
You're
2
talking
years
about number
earlier.
one?
Number one
Number one
ballots. Right,
votes,
this is
okay.
only showing the number one
Right.
vote distribution.
Okay,
So what happened in Ward 9 is that Jan Devereaux picked up a ton of ballots, and the two
oh
people
goodness,
who
look at the
oh,
totals
she's
there.
a very much. It's interesting. when
And
you look at
David
her-
Marr, that's interesting.
Because I was putting this together for the first time on Friday night into Saturday, and I started with Ward 1, Precinct 1, Ward 1, Precinct 2,
Yeah.
working my way through, and Devereaux basically is getting nothing through Wards 1,
Right,
2,
you can
3,
see the numbers,
4,
you're
5.
right, like
Boom,
single
boom.
digits.
So if you ever want to see like a classic
Yeah.
example of a candidate that is a very specific regional candidate,
Right.
there you got it. And in a way, she's very comparable to Tim Toomey. Tim Toomey, if you go over there for much farther to the right, up at the top of the chart,
Sure,
you'll
he's
see
all
his
in
votes are all
Ward
in
1,
Ward 1.
yes.
So essentially, Jan Devereaux becomes sort of like the Tim Toomey
Right.
of 02138.
But David Marr has quite
David
a bit
Marr,
in the
and-
same ward.
And there was a
Yeah.
lot of concern that David Marr was going to lose a lot of votes. In
Yeah.
fact, he didn't really lose much of anything.
Didn't seem that way,
He
yeah.
held on to his votes.
Yeah.
The total differential for David Marr was negligible. It was really the Devereaux votes primarily were just ones that were shifted over from might have otherwise gone to Leland Chung. Mark McGovern took a little bit of a loss,
Yeah.
maybe 60 some odd votes down there. But there were also other candidates who didn't run this time, like Sam Seidel and Ken Reeves. So that's where some of the other
Okay,
extra
two
votes came
glaring
from.
things here to me, and they're popping out at me. I see under Greg Kelly in Ward 11, the precinct 1 is 19 votes, and then precinct 2 is 254 votes.
Right.
And then, so what is it, and the same thing with
Well, first
Mazem in the same
Well, okay,
ward.
now there's
236 and then 89,
Yeah.
what's that about?
Well, I can actually speak to that
What
very
is that,
deliberately.
where is that again? Can we
Actually, if we
go back to the map?
Yeah, if we go back to the map, it's
Okay, so I
you can
need to
just go up
cross
to the
this,
tab, up to the tab right up
right,
there.
okay,
You
and then
over
go back
there,
to the
and if you
map,
click, there's-
okay.
Well, we could do that, but that's
Oh.
actually not what I was looking
All
to
right,
do.
what do you want me to do? All
Just to go back,
right, cancel this.
well, then you have to
All
redo
right.
everything.
All right,
Okay.
go ahead. Where do you want me to go?
All right, well,
I can't go that way. All right.
just.
Close this item. There should
so
be a
you gotta
tab
go
here,
back to
no?
our Winchester Common. All right.
All
I'll
right,
tell you
all
what.
right. Let's go back to us for a minute.
All right. All right.
Or maybe this
except
one.
that the equipment
All
isn't
right.
working here. in
So
the
just, you
studio.
keep talking and I'll try, oh, there
right,
we go.
I'm just-
All right,
okay,
but we're
fine.
back there. You keep
right.
talking and I will try to get back to this.
Yeah, so if you can kind of work
Oh,
your way
dear.
back there.
Yeah,
What I was going to
yeah.
say here, I'll just say some other things that I got from the ballot data. And
Yeah.
we'll come back to that
All right.
as we come here.
All right.
One of the other things that you can do with ballot data is you can actually, because I also have the Choice Plus Pro software that's actually used to conduct the election. The resulting files, actually you can run them and determine who would replace each and every one of the elected councilors. So there are
Wow.
9 city councilors who were elected. This is, by the way, not posted up on the website. So, because it's not on the website, so this will be the first late breaking news here.
All right,
So
so,
there are 9 elected city councilors: Carlone, Chung, Devereaux, Kelly, Marr, Mazin, McGovern, Simmons, and Toomey.
wait,
right.
go back
Now,
down to this.
if you actually run the numbers, what you see is that in fact there are 6 of the city councilors. In fact, the 6 who are part of the unity slate. All right, so that's Leland Chung, Craig Kelly, David Marr, Mark McGovern, Denise Simmons, and Tim Toomey. If any of those were to leave office anytime during the next 2 years, their replacement would be Dennis Benzen, who was the 7th member of the unity slate. So I think that's some sort of validation for the vacancy refill procedure.
Okay.
in that it does, somewhat respect whatever the constituency it is that elected these would be replaced by somebody who,
Okay.
by some standard, would be viewed as comparable.
Okay, so I'm
Right.
back, do you wanna look at
Well,
something
let
you
me
were
just
talking?
finish doing these, and
Okay,
then we'll go back to that.
you don't wanna look at the
Yeah, let me
slate thing?
finish these and we'll go right back to
All right.
those. Okay, so then there were two, and I think these are kind of slate related in that, at least from my perspective, Dennis Carlone and Jan Devereaux were essentially the darlings of the Cambridge Residence Alliance slate. And not unexpectedly, if either of those two were to leave office over any time during the next 2 years, their replacement would be the third darling of the Cambridge Residence Alliance
Was
slate,
Mike Conley?
which is Mike Connolly.
Oh,
And I've always asserted that the Mazen slate was a fundamentally different thing, even though Mazen was part of the
Cambridge
Residence
Residence,
Alliance
right.
slate, but it was really a different organization, different setup. In fact, if Mazen were to leave anytime during the next 2 years, his replacement would be Mariko Davidson. So not Connolly, right? So you
That's
can kind of
interesting,
see
yeah.
that
The
to whatever
slates
degree
do-
that they were, at least I identified
Right.
as Unity slate, Residence Alliance slate,
Mhm.
Mazen slate,
right,
they are in fact respected in terms of what the
Right.
ballots would do in terms of
so that it
determining
makes it
replacements.
somewhat a worthwhile thing for them to do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, the overriding things that I discerned from the ballot data was that it's not, it wasn't so much that the slate was determining the winners. I think the determination of the winners was not really driven by the slates at all. But the thing is that what you do see is by the fact that a lot of people were voting based on secondary preferences and whatever, a certain amount of desire, a hunger amongst voters for information. So in other words, they say, well, all right, I'm planning on voting for Craig Kelly, who else should I vote for?
Right,
So they might go to things like Cambridge candidate pages for that information, or else they might ask friends and whatever. So if somebody hands them a slate card and said, well,
Right.
these are the good guys,
then they have it there,
I'm
yeah.
gonna go out on a limb here and say that I
Yeah.
think people really are hungry for that, and they say, yeah, we like that, and we want
Yeah.
that. So
Simplifies it, I'm busy,
Yeah.
but I wanna vote, but I don't have a whole lot of time.
exactly, it's kind of like in the old days of the CCA slate. days,
Yeah,
if
I mean,
they-
that was a slate.
Yeah, so people wanted that. So let's see if we can go back here.
Okay,
Now, I guess I may have to just request it here because, oh, you
no,
got
we're
it?
fine, so which one do you
Alright.
want now?
All right, so now let's look either at, let's go to the 2015 City Council number 2 vote
This one.
distributions.
Slates and viable
Viable
candidates?
candidates,
Okay,
okay? So this to me was something that I thought of was a reasonably good indication of sort of how this works. So I got this, it's actually on 2 pages, so this is the
oh,
first of them.
okay, right, this is the.
So what I
unity
did is
slate.
rather than group them alphabetically, I just grouped them entirely by which slates they were associated with.
Okay,
So what you're seeing up there is, actually I'm just grabbing a paper copy that I can read a little bit better here. Here we go. So what you're seeing in there is the 7 who are a part of the so-called unity slate. And what you see is that, and just so you understand what these are showing you, is that the first box is the one associated with Dennis Benzan's number 1 ballots.
okay,
So he had, whatever the total was is not relevant here, but if you look at number 2 preferences behind a Dennis Benzan number 1, what you see is that 28% of the number 2s are for Denise Simmons,
okay.
10.4% are nobody at all because
I was
they were
wondering what that word
a bullet.
meant,
You know, when you
bullets.
bullet vote, you vote for only one candidate, so there's no
Ah,
other
okay,
preferences.
all right,
And then about 9.2% for Mark McGovern, then
Huh.
Tim Toomey, David Marr, Leland Chung. So what are you seeing there? You're seeing, in fact, the other unity slate candidates are the ones who are getting the secondary preferences. Denise Simmons overwhelmingly so for other reasons, but they live on the same block, other kind of
okay.
similarities.
There you
yeah.
go.
Okay. Now, if you switch over to the next box, you see Leland Chung.
Right,
Well, it's somewhat still the case. You see behind a Leland Chung, you see a Mark McGovern, Denise Simmons, Craig Kelly, David Marr. But you start to see, because maybe Leland
Yeah.
Chung is a different type of candidate, you see a Mazen starts to
yeah,
creep into
before
the mix.
Dennis Benzan, yeah.
Then Minka, So, and long before you run into Tim Toomey further down, way down the path
Right,
there,
right,
right? If you go to Craig Kelly was sort of not your classic old independent type counselor. So behind him, you see, not surprisingly, Leland Chung is his
Right,
second
now
choice.
what do you mean not surprising? See, I'm surprised.
Well,
I guess I don't associate those two together, but.
well, I don't. The thing is, he's not a classic independent. I mean, the thing is that the
Yeah.
old independents would have been people who were born and raised in Cambridge.
Oh,
Kelly,
okay, so
Kelly
then
was
that,
not.
and neither is Chung,
And
maybe.
neither is Leland. So
Okay,
you
so
see a
that
little bit
makes
of that
sense.
as manifest in the,
Okay.
in the secondary
I get that
preferences
now.
behind a
All
Craig
right.
Kelly number one,
Mm-hmm.
going down 15%. But then the Unity slate is definitely showing its
Right.
stuff there.
Sure.
So normally in years past, I would not expect to see 14% of those have a David Marr number two,
Uh-huh.
and then Mark McGovern or whatever. I might have expected to
Denise,
see
right.
Minka higher,
Yeah.
number two rather than David Marr. So you're starting to see
Yeah.
again the slate apparently was being adhered to
Was
by
effective.
some people
Uh-huh.
to some degree. I mean, there weren't any transfers amongst these. The only ones who had transferred was Dennis Benzen when he was defeated.
Right.
So you didn't actually see these things actually play a role in the election, but they're
Right.
an indicator of people's choices. Same thing with David
David
Marr.
Marr. Mhm.
Overwhelmingly, Tim Toomey is
Sure.
the next choice,
That
followed by
makes
Mark
sense,
McGovern,
yeah.
and then others, but it's high on the Unity slate.
It's all the slate, yeah.
McGovern, number one, is followed by Denise Simmons, then
Mhm.
Leland Chung, Dennis Benzan.
Mm-hmm.
On a Denise Simmons number one ballot, the secondary preferences go Benzan, very much not surprisingly. Then,
Right.
But then Tim Toomey, Mark McGovern, etc. And finally for Tim Toomey, you see David Marr, very
Yeah.
much expected. And then, number ones, because people in East Cambridge vote a little higher rate of bullet voting than most places.
Yeah, why is that? It's
It's just
interesting.
it's tradition, I
So
think.
it's like, I don't really like anyone else, but I have
Or
to do
else
it.
It's kind of, just sort of
Yeah.
misinformation that people are given.
Okay.
But then, but you do see a very high prominence of all the Unity
Right.
slate. Now, if we switch to the second page
Yeah,
of
but
this,
I want to make sure I do this right.
you can do it up in the upper left and just go to
So-
the next page. Upper left.
Upper
left
left.
where it says
Oh,
page.
yeah, page.
There's a
Just,
little arrow.
yep,
arrow.
I got it. I
There
got
you
it.
go.
There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Now,
let
so
me
here
move it
I
up.
just in this one here I grouped the Residence Alliance, which are really across the top three. But remember, there's a little bit of intersection
Mhm.
between Residence Line grouping and the Mazen grouping. So if you go across the top, you see the Residence Alliance with Mazen on the right, and then below that and wrapping around, you see the Mazen slate. So there you see prominently behind the Dennis Carlone number one, there are about almost a quarter of the ballots have Connolly two, then Mazen, then Devereaux, right? Notice that these are
Yeah.
people within that slate. Same thing behind a Connolly, you see 21% for Carlone, then Devereaux, then Mazen,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. Behind Devereaux, it's like 24% for Carlone, then Mazen, Connolly. So you see it's a very different sense than what you saw with the other
Right.
candidates. Go over to Mazen, because nobody got to see the Mazens except in the surplus distribution, but you see there that very significantly is about 22% of Mazen's ones have a Rico Davidson as a number two, which I didn't find surprising. What I did find surprising is that the third of the Mazen slate, which is from main weight, only gets down around 6%.
Right. Because Dennis Carlone
Right.
came in high.
Now, if you sort of wrap around, let me sort of skip over to weight right down there.
Oh, right here.
What you see there is behind a weight number one, you see Mazen as a number two, so he was
Yeah.
what we like to say is a classic feeder candidate, and then Davidson, like this, right? But which is it's sort of non-reciprocal. In other words, behind
Yeah.
a Mazen one, you see weight relatively low, but behind a weight one, you see Mazen at the tippy top.
Yeah.
So who's feeding who, right?
Right.
Davidson clearly feeding Mazen, right, in this case. Minka van Busekom is the only other really prominent candidate here who was not affiliated with any of the slates. So her ballots kind of move around. They sort of have a little bit of everything. It's Leland Chung, then a Mazen, then a Carlone, then back
Yeah.
to Kelly, then over to Connolly, then over to
Interesting.
Simmons, whatever.
Yeah. So she's
So
got
you
a mixture of both slates there.
Absolutely. You start to see that all breaking down.
Yeah.
There. So anyway, that's kind of thing. So let's see if we
Yeah.
can kind of switch back here. Oh,
There we
can
are.
actually get it.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, that's just one measure. I thought that was particularly interesting. I'll say here, since we actually have about a minute and a half left
Yeah.
here,
Well-
I'll just give a couple of other little sort of tidbit facts, and then we'll look at some other particulars in the next
In the
half
next
hour.
segment. Okay.
One other thing I always like to do is, because come January, early January, they are going to have to elect a mayor.
Right.
And they do it because all 9 of them just basically poll among themselves, and whoever can get 5 votes secured internally amongst themselves can become mayor.
Right.
And it's always sort of very contentious or whatever. But I always thought, one good measure of who should be mayor would be if you took all the ballots and you just, instead of electing 9, you just continued the runoffs until you whittled them all the way down to 1. Right? So and then you say, so that would be the person who would prevail. So if you were just using the ballots to elect the mayor, who would be mayor? Right?
The number 1 vote getter?
Well, you might think it would be the number 1 vote
Yeah.
getter, and in fact, for all the first 20 rounds, because you got to eliminate, you could bring it to 23 candidates down to 1. For the first 20, it's Mazin is at the top. Round 21, Denise Simmons goes on top and wins.
Yeah, I have a feeling she will probably get it.
I think it would be a great choice.
Because the top vote getter doesn't, I remember Henrietta used to get top vote, and she never got to be mayor until
Right.
the last term.
Yeah, I think top vote getter is not a particularly good
Right.
measure of who should
Right.
be mayor. It really should be
Right.
more of a consensus
It's consensus
candidate.
among which I think Denise is.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Denise or David. So, anyway, we'll be back in a couple minutes
Okay.
here. So until then, this is
Judy Nathans and
Robert Winters. I'll see you in a bit.